This is the Sony ZV-1, piloted in 2021 as the best camera for vloggers and content creators. And my question in 2022 is that actually the case? Does Sony really deliver? Now, if you already have a Sony ZV, please feel free to comment and share your experiences. I now do share my user experience. So the first thing for vlogging, one of the key things that I always ask myself is it small enough? Well, Sony definitely delivered a very small compact camera body, very functionally designed. So you see here quickly, photography dedicated button, videography dedicated button, a button that allows you via algorithm to create a blurry background. It has a flip out screen, which is not a touch screen. It goes past me why Sony can't really implement a touchscreen like, for instance, Panasonic has. We see here at the bottom a tripod mount. This is also the big negative from the design point of view, is that once you open your battery door, your tripod mount gets blocked, so that's not that nice. The battery itself, a lot of people have criticized the battery online. I personally don't agree with that. I think battery life of a little over an hour in 4K, I don't find that particularly bad for the size that this battery is. Yes, if you have an A7 III or an A7 IV, you get a huge battery. Obviously that's going to have 900 shots. This has about 250 shots. There are three little doors here which allow you to connect a streaming cable. They allow you to add a microphone, and more importantly, you can also charge with a power bank, no problem. And the great thing about the Sony ZV, and this was new to me, is that when your battery is nearly dead, you put a power bank in, you can keep on recording, no trouble. Yes, this tends to overheat after about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and that's also one of the first things you need to do, because once you get this out of the box, this particular camera comes with a 4K recording limit, so you need to go into your settings and basically go to the right tabs. You'll see it whizzing by here now, to remove that, and you do so by putting the power management mode into high. Then you can really shoot for a long time. The minute you get your SD out of it, you burn your fingers after about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but you know, other than that, it pretty much delivers. Additionally, it also comes with features which I call smartphony, not smartphone, but smartphony, as they have the defocus and focus button. On top of this, this allows you to create a natural blurry background. One of the key features that I really like about this camera is the product on and off mode, because it allows you to get rid of one problem that Sony cameras have, is that their facial detection software is so good that if you, for instance, do like this, I'm now in zone, but normally it would always pick onto your face, not on the subject. So normally you would have to do like this, and you would have to keep it close enough so that your face won't blur. So from that point of view, I think it's pretty good. They have a variable ND filter in there, which is the sunglasses for your camera, and especially when you go filming, we all know shutter speed, and in broad daylight, what do you get? Ow, 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 ow. You're overexposed, so you need to mount an ND filter, an external one. Well, you can do that via this little thing. This is a magnetic filter. You just cling it on here, and you can have an ND filter, or you can have the Ulanzi 18mm lens onto it. So I think all of that is pretty good. Some nice features. You have a beautification mode, which makes me look like I've just walked out of a Snapchat, I can't say it, Snapchat episode from 2017. The only thing missing is my bunny ears. Other than that, some pretty cool stuff in here. Then there is in-body stabilization. You can switch it off. You can have it on standard or on active. So all of that normally should be a recipe for a pretty good vlogging camera. Well, vlogging you still do like this, and that's where the problems start with this camera. It only offers 4K 30p mode, and once you start walking around, you'll see that the stabilization is pretty terrible compared to some smaller action cams. It is diabolically bad. So what you normally do is you go into active, and what do you get? Your field of view suddenly narrows down to the equivalent of about 30 to 33 millimeters, which means you can't vlog on arm's length. This is a bit of an issue, a big issue, because in HD you have the same problem if you go to 1080p. So from a design point of view, Sony, did you really deliver the best vlogging camera? I'm inclined to say no. If I compare this image stabilization with, for instance, the DJI Pocket 2, DJI Action 2, the Insta316 cameras and the GoPros, this doesn't even come near. So that's one thing that you should really pay attention to, but then again, are you always walking around? I'm not stating this is the worst camera, I'm just stating if you really want to do this run and gun thing with proper image stabilization, horizon lock and everything, there's better cameras. But there's a little other trick here which will take care of the stabilization problem, and that's that it records gyro data, and gyro data basically means that afterwards you can put it into a program called Catalyst Browse and it will smoothen out your footage. But other than that, this camera also records in 1080p, 4K, but you can also film with it, and that's where I found this camera fantastic. Although it's not weather sealed, the build is very rugged and pretty darn good, I have to say. I've tested it out in the snow in southern Poland, and I was really amazed about how well this camera shoots in combination with the Sony picture profiles, which are basically very flat color profiles for videographers and cinematographers, and afterwards you can pretty much color code. So you see a few examples here whizzing by which just give you a bit of an impression of what this camera can do. All of it is handheld, no stabilization, nothing, just shooting video. An additional thing here is, and specifically for vlogging and for wide angles, yes, you can have a few accessories for that. You can see them over here. In this episode I recorded, but in general is, for me, the biggest downside to this camera is the fact that Sony has, in my view, made a wrong choice in the focal length of 24-70 equivalent. I would have loved to see him put something in from 15 to 18 millimeters all the way up to 55. That probably would have been my preference. This camera does deliver on a lot of things. It's small. I think the battery life is very acceptable. I think the color coming out of this camera is pretty good. I think it's very reliable, and most of all, it's very easy to use. You don't have to be a seasoned user. It is very much catered for people who see this as their first camera, the person who just wants to shoot whatever it is you're shooting. It could be family events, it could be nights out, whatever it is. So I think it's pretty good. For low light, it does an acceptable job. I don't think it's the best, but I also don't think it is the worst. So if I were to rate this on star basis for its design, I'll give it 4 out of 5. For its vlogging, I'll give it a 3 out of 5, because I really think with the active stabilization involved, it isn't the best, it's sufficient, but it really doesn't do a good job. For filming as a whole, just the entire experience and the features you have available, I'll definitely give it 4 out of 5, maybe even 4.5 out of 5, because you can really do a lot with this camera. Could the battery life be better? Sure it could, but it could also be a lot worse. So I think 4 to 4.5, 5 stars. Now you're thinking, where's photography? Yes. And that's the one thing. If you're thinking you're going to get a very cheap Ricoh or Sony RX100 series out of this one, don't bother, you're not. For photography, it's great to see you have an insanely close minimum focusing distance. I think it's 10-11 centimeters, which is great. You've got that 24 frames per second burst. I also think that the pictures out of it look pretty decent as long as you shoot in auto. You're gonna have to shoot in auto because that's when you get the benefit of all the technology Sony put into this camera. But overall, I think the image quality, if you really start having a good look, I wasn't impressed with it. But then again, I am a photography first guy and I really normally shoot on far bigger cameras. So, but if you're just posting this for social media, you just want to take snaps, it's fine. It also doesn't have a viewfinder, which is a major hassle to me because I like to peep through the camera. But other than that, you can take decent stills of it, but don't expect some kind of miracle here. I think if you're more into photography, the Sony ZV-10 is probably a better choice. But anyways, this was my little review and thoughts on this Sony. Whether it delivers or not, hey, it's only my opinion. Let me know your opinion.